listening to Nakedly Examined Music, a podcast about songs and songwriting. My name is Mark Linsenmeyer. My guest today for episode 156 is Emma Jean Thackray, who plays jazz trumpet, sings R&B, produces, arranges, runs a label, very multi-talented person. You're right now hearing Baro Bop, the opening track to Walrus, an EP from 2016. She's just had her fifth release, though she's calling it her debut album, because it's the first one that's super long. The album is Yellow, and we'll discuss Say Something from that album, then look to a song, Open, that she released as a remix featuring the rapper Blue in 2020, and then to a long instrumental from the 2020 EP Gang, and we'll conclude by listening to Spectre, another track from the new album. For more information, please see emmajeanthackray.com. For more about this podcast, see nakedlyexaminedmusic.com, and to support us, I encourage you to go to patreon.com/nakedlyexaminedmusic, or you can upgrade your subscription directly in Apple Podcasts. So I will have played a little of Baro Bop from Walrus, 2016, your first release. We're going to get pretty quickly to the new stuff, but that's only a 5-year jump. Clearly, you'd had a lot of experience before sort of becoming the band leader. Can you set us up a little bit about your journey before we get to the new album?
Sure. How far back do you want to go? I was born on a Wednesday.
Whatever we can do in 5 minutes. Let me put it that way. So I saw that you had trained under Keith Tippett. I've talked to several King Crimson related people. So everybody knows everybody by at least one step removed, I guess. But you were playing with orchestras. You were playing in jazz bands. Tell me about this leap to actually, okay, I'm going to do my own release now. I'm going to sing on it. You're a trumpet player, but yet you've also done orchestration. I see you playing guitar, synth, and keyboard on some videos.
Yeah, so I started playing the trumpet. Well, before that, I was doing brass band stuff from being about 8. It's quite synonymous with the musical landscape of where I'm from in Yorkshire in Northern England. And yes, which sort of added the trumpet to things when I was about 14. Started listening to jazz, realized that's what I wanted to do. So I went to the Royal Welsh to study jazz. Keith Tippett was one of my teachers, as you said. And to even study jazz at that level at a conservatoire, you're kind of already gigging. You're a professional musician pretty much. And a big part of that is writing your own tunes and leading a band and trying to develop those skills as well. So it's something that I've been doing as a teenager, just playing anything and everything that I could manage, including running a band with a friend, like some sort of just sort of like pub band, soul music kind of stuff.
But still jazz? Or was it like you're already doing this sort of R&B thing that is a good part of your output now?
I mean, I was definitely doing things that are part of what's going on now. So I was doing like the sort of funky, soul-y kind of stuff from being a teenager. And there was improv involved, but it wasn't necessarily jazz. But then I was doing jazz stuff that incorporated lots of other things as well. So it was kind of already that I wanted to replicate the stuff that I was hearing. I was listening to a lot of varying music, like a lot of prog, a lot of symphony stuff, through to like improvised weird jazz. So I think I was just doing that from day one, really. And just as time went on, I was doing it to a higher level.
We'll explore some more of the history as we go. We're going to kind of work in reverse chronological order, but we want to start the first single, Say Something, from your first full-length album, Yellow, 2021. But again, this is your fifth. You've had lots of shorter releases that...
Yeah, little short stories, and this is the first novel.
Tell us a little, just for a minute before we hear it in full, where you're at this point with this song.
I was at a place where I was hearing a lot of noise from people, from other songs, and I just felt like there was a lot of people just making noise for noise sake, and I wanted to do something to combat that, to just sort of say like, if you're going to do it, mean it.
Open your eyes before you open your mouth. Stick out your tongue and let me look inside. I want to find what's down your throat. Open your heart to open up your mind. speak. Say something. Say something. Say something. Don't just speak. Don't just speak. Say something. Say something.
So do you write these songs on piano, on electric piano, on something? Clearly that main riff was something that you went in with. Could you tell me a little, how do you do a demo of this? Are you writing actual notes out for your band? How is this put together?
I'm writing actual notes, down on lead sheets. This one I wrote on, I think on this. I've got this pianette. That's how I heard it in my head. I heard not just the notes, but the sonic qualities of it, and immediately knew that's the sound I want. I tend to gravitate towards Rhodes and, the sort of electric piano sounds. I think that's probably the thing, other than playing trumpet, that's the thing that makes people say that, oh, she's very influenced by Miles Davis and so and so. So that's like a real signature of, that's just a sound that I enjoy, and I'm happy to lean into it for sure. So write it all down as like a lead sheet. I've got the structure set out. I've got the melody line, the chords sort of thing. And then everything else, I'll sing it to the band, or we'll just talk it through. But when we recorded this whole album, they'd never played it before. We just sort of looked at a couple of tunes for about 10 minutes and I said, okay, great, let's record it. Let's go.
So for instance, that hi-hat rhythm right at the beginning, was that also kind of part of the composition, or was that you and the drummer spitballing something?
Before you open your...
It's part of the composition, yeah. It's usually the grooves and everything.
Or is that actually programmed? I should say, yeah. How much is this?
No, it is played by Dougal, yeah. But he's sort of playing what I've asked him to.
That atmospheric sound at the beginning, the sea, the wind, something like that.
Mind.
So again, is that you overdubbing, or is that, I've seen a live version of this. Seems like your live versions match up pretty well to what I'm hearing on the recording. In this case, was this a largely live band performance that's captured, or was there a lot of after the fact messing with it?
It's almost all after the fact, pretty much. So it's usually that I've sort of worked backwards, where I've made a tune and then it comes to playing it live and I'm having to rearrange it to fit what I've produced and sort of overdubbed and all that kind of stuff. So on the record, there's someone who plays drums. Lyle is on the Rhodes or the Wurlitzer, a guy playing the tuba, a couple of horn players and stuff like that. But everything else is me, and I'm recording it all at different times, different studios, with different people, and just I'm the one fitting it all together and saying, okay, right now I want you to pretend that someone else is doing that, because that's what's going to happen next week when I record them. And, I've got the whole vision in my head, and I just have to get everyone to perform their little bit of the jigsaw piece, so much so that when everyone heard the record back, they were like, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be, because they just heard their tiny little portion that they were part of.
And then even just the big choir at the end, did you kind of just layer all that yourself first and have other people come in to just fill in, okay, I need a low male voice down there? Or is that am I just projecting that from the live band and this is actually all you?
It's almost all me. There are a few people there to thicken it up, yeah, because if you just sort of overdub your voice over and over again, because it's the same tessiture and the same inflections, it starts to sound a little bit phasey, or you're not necessarily getting that thickness that you want. It just sounds louder. So the way you can do that, like I've done stuff of like standing different places in the room, or I might sort of fiddle with the formant so it sounds like a little girl singing it, or it might sound like a guy singing it, or whatever it is I want to do to tweak it. But I still wanted that huge kind of almost gospel-y sound. So I got some people to come and overdub their parts as well. But it's sort of me plus.
Sure. And then even at the beginning, which is just you, one of the things I do remember seeing in watching a live video of you is that you actually were operating vocal effects pedals on stage, that clearly having like the echoes and the, having some even real-time control of that was a pretty key part of the sound. You didn't start as a singer. What is your relationship to your own voice in terms of feeling confident putting it out there as the R&B lead singer?
For me, singing is just like playing the trumpet, except you've got some words. And that was part of the way that I sort of approached this record. It's like, I had some words to say. So that's what I did. And I've always sang, and my second study at the Royal Welsh was singing, and I've just kind of always done that. And I've done little bits on EPs before, but it's a thing of people saying, you are a trumpet player. So I'm like, oh, I guess I'm playing the trumpet. And so more and more, I'm kind of like, but I'm not just a trumpet player. I do this and I do that. And it's just more and more of, it's not that these things are new to me. It's just new to everyone else, because now I'm deciding not to hide them anymore. I approach singing just like I would a trumpet, like the effects pedals that you saw I use them doing trumpet live and stuff as well. So having that control of like, okay, this is an echo that's happening and I want it to be the timing of it. And, I'm doing it all live, and that's what's fun to me.
Well, and you also just clearly have fun with your voice. At least I assume this is yours. So I want to find, you do this like very melodramatic Bee Gees sounding thing, which is just great. But you're pretty controlled about that. It's not like a lot of these maybe just singers who, especially in the R&B world, maybe will go overboard with that. That since clearly from that one note, you have that skill, but yet I don't see that all over every song as the way that you raise energy at the end of the song, say. Yeah,
that is me. When I'm writing music, I'm just following where my ears are taking me, and I'm just trusting myself. And if I'm hearing something like, oh, okay, yeah, and I just sing it and I just trust that it's the right thing to do. And then maybe there's some tweaks later. But in the moment, I'm just sort of letting it all happen. And just trying to be really honest about how things are coming out, just letting it happen.
Like, is that kind of articulation you're saying you're thinking of your voice pretty much exactly the way melodically that you would think of your trumpet? I mean, is it really such that you could have played that same shape with your trumpet or your voice, and it's really just a matter of like what seems to fit at the time? Or is there more of just like, okay, now I'm in trumpet mode in terms of how the melodies should be shaped?
I think they're one and the same.
Okay.
Like you said, a lot of singers kind of rely on that melisma and all those runs and stuff. And that's because it's like, I can do it, but I don't necessarily think you should do something because you can. Like if you're saying, oh, I can do this, it's not serving the tune necessarily. So I think things like that can be more effective if you don't do them for almost the whole time, and then they just sort of start to creep in and you're building up that intensity, that busyness. I think it should inform the melody rather than being about showing off, for sure.
Let me play a section. It's one of the transitions at the end of the second verse. This is about 1:28 in. It seems like it ends up in the same key that it started. Am I right? I mean, it's a different section of the song, but it's still the same first chord.
Same first chord, okay. Yeah.
It's moving so far. You do a simpler version of that a little earlier in the song, but it really just, so much of the rest of the song could be kind of a 70s R&B thing. But here, like, oh no, this is actually jazz. We're going to throw in some extra music theory here that sounds like it's going to take off into the stratosphere, but actually it's just in the video of this that the camera kind of spins around you a little bit. Like it's a dramatic moment, but it's about moving to the next section. It's not about now we're opening up into the giant, completely different song.
It should hopefully feel, like you said, transition. I really wanted these two worlds to join up. So it starts with this kind of very controlled, tightly clipped house kind of thing. And then the second part is much more organic and a bit more wild. Rather than just putting them next to each other, they definitely needed to be a journey into that place. So something that we did in the music video was, I really like old sci-fi, retro kind of sci-fi kind of stuff. So Logan's Run was something that we used. This inside world, lots of control, people not being true to themselves, go to the outside world. It's kind of a new experience, people living as they want to live. That's kind of the way I was thinking about it with the music as well. People making noise, not being true to themselves. And then, you're finally saying something with a message. You're finally saying your truth. I wanted there to be this ramp up, this sort of thing launching you. So I'm building tension. I've got these chords, they're sort of moving in parallel, these big fat sort of sus chords. And then bang, you're in this second section. It's similar to the first section because, like you said, we're starting on that same chord. We're starting on this B flat sus chord. So it's got echoes at the beginning, but it is a new world. It's just yourself, but transformed.
Well, I also wouldn't have known without that video that synth, you actually played that on guitar synth. Is that right?
No, it is just on normal synth, but I just thought for the video it'd be fun to sort of do like a pretend play along.
I see. All right. You were blowing my mind a little too much there.
Yeah, so I'm kind of evoking the shapes on the guitar, but they're not the notes, but I'm just sort of making it seem
it was close enough that I thought looking at your fingers that you were playing the actual notes, but I'm sure it was the camera was moving around a little more than would make that entirely clear. But yeah, say a little about, even just that choice of synth sound. You're saying you're being fond of Logan's Run or something like, okay, well, this is a synth patch from 1980 something, like at least that's the sound that you're capturing there.
And that's across the whole record, this kind of like very sawtoothy, fat, kind of squelchy sound. I wish that they were original synths from that time. Unfortunately, I don't have that at my disposal. But I'm just kind of, trying to evoke that kind of 70s sound of almost like have you heard of a Voyager synth? There's like a couple of that in there, but I don't have a real one. But yeah, I'm trying to get close to what that can bring you.
All right, so then you got this launching solo to really your other world here. Let me play a little bit from around 203. You know, I think about that, a Love Supreme or something. There are plenty of examples in jazz where you're continuing to solo, but now we're going to have the mantra that's going to come in. And in this case, it's you making your little choir to start this that's going to take us through the end of the song. Yeah, can you say a little about how you're thinking about that part dramatically?
I tend to dislike it when you just leave a soloist to it and all the agency is on them to come up with all the material. I think what you need to do is help them and support them and bring them fresh things to help inject something into what they're doing. So I'm using that riff of the Don't Just Speak, Say Something as a chorus of the song and like a sort of chanting kindness, a hook, but also it's a vehicle for the solo. It's to give the soloist more things to pick up on, to pick from, to evolve. And I also really like it when just things get bigger and bigger and busier. And the soloist has got to think of different ways to cut through. So maybe that's, I don't know, playing higher pitch or something, whatever it is that depends on what instrument that you're playing. In this case, the soloist is me, but I was thinking about it as a live experience. It's like, you need something to inject. So if my keys player live is soloing, it's like, I'm not just going to leave him to it. I want to give him some material to draw from and for us to interact with as well. So I might start playing a riff or something like that. And then it's about us listening to each other rather than just being like, okay, go do a solo. I'll see you in 5 minutes. That tends to be quite boring for me.
And you're playing with 2 keyboard players live with this unit. Is that right?
Just one, and he's playing with 2 hands, 2 different things.
Okay. Well, I recall seeing some video that I'm sure was a different lineup from a couple years ago where you had the same guy you're using now, whose name is
Lyle Barton.
Yes. And then who was doing, I think, the Rhodes part, and then someone else was doing an organ part. I guess, is there any circumstances in which you, in the live thing, well, I soloed this on the record, I could do it on trumpet, let me just put the one-handed synth to the side and do that. Is that part of your palette, or are you just keeping a little more as a live thing, in your lane?
Yeah, I don't really know what the lane is. I mean, sometimes it's Elliot Galvin, fantastic keyboard player I've known for a very long time. We'll come and do synth stuff sometimes. We just needed to keep the band small just for touring. It just makes things easier. So it's just 5 of us. If we're playing live, I could be singing, I could play the trumpet. I'm triggering stuff on sampler. So there are times where I'm playing the trumpet with one hand and pressing knobs and whistles with the other hand. So
the director was your lane in terms of doing all these things that will, get us into the next part of the song with the sample or the solo instrument, as opposed to, I'm also going to hold down the rhythm keyboard. No, I haven't at least seen you do that. Would that be distracting in terms of the singing while playing thing?
I've done that before. I mean, yeah, I'm definitely also giving hand signals okay, we're moving to this section, or I want you to do this, or there's a sort of little offshoot of something that I did for a while called Sub Ra. So it's Playing Sun Ra tunes, but with speed garage kind of sounds. And there I was playing keyboard and singing and doing stuff at the same time. Or in Say Something, we did a version on Jules Holland's show where I'm playing the guitar and singing. And I would take my guitar all the time if it wasn't a bit of a bummer to get around through customs and all that kind of stuff. It's hard enough even with the trumpet. I've definitely got to a destination and then open the case and see my trumpet all bent up. So I don't want to do that with another instrument as well.
So talking about these transitions still, let me play around 3:14 when you move to the acapella section. I'm just thinking about how you make the drums and the rest of the band go away, because you could choose to do that in a big flourish. Here you it drops out in a very, it's a little hard to hear even when exactly are they stopping? Was there manual fading in the mixing process to make that smooth, that you really wanted it to be more, just less obvious than now we're all gonna clap and have the band stop and now everybody's singing together. It's less cheesy than that.
Well, there is a version where everyone just kind of stops. And I kept in a little bit at the end where the drummer's putting down the sticks and I'm okay, cool, let's have a break. I kept that in. Oh. But obviously I was never going to release that. That was just for fun. But yeah, so I'm bringing everyone down. I'm sort of fading everyone because I really wanted it to feel like the choir was growing out of it and that they were the focus. So they're, and I start that process quite early. Like they're constantly getting a little bit louder and then the harmonies are growing and then, things are getting bigger, thicker. The stereo panning has gone from quite narrow and is coming further and further out and further to the side. So there's this constant growth that you should feel. And then, by the end, the rhythm section and everyone else is just sort of, hopefully it's not too obvious. It shouldn't sound too much like they're deliberately fading. You should just be focusing on the vocals and hearing them sort of lift out of this sound world and becoming their own thing.
So I know that some of your catalog on Spotify, as I look through it, is like you doing a remix of somebody else's tune, or the next one actually is you doing a remix of your own tune. For this song, did you do the mixing all yourself, or were you standing next to somebody? Or how? I'm even wondering, since it was produced largely during COVID times, like seem to be describing a lot of it as you layering stuff in a room by yourself. What was sort of the production process of this one like?
I'm doing it on my own.
So even the mixing, the final mix.
Mixing is all me as well. Yeah. The only project that's not been mixed by me is one called Yang. But I sort of told them what I wanted and then we were playing it straight into vinyl. So I couldn't be mixing in the other room at the same time. But other than that, everything, it's always me because I sort of see the mixing as just as important as the production and the composition. They're all coming from the same place.
It's time once again for the sponsor messages. And I think you can guess who my first sponsor is. It's Masterclass, where you can learn from the world's best minds anytime, anywhere at your own pace. Over 100 classes to choose from, available to you anytime, anywhere on iOS, Android, desktop, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and Roku. You can listen to them really fast like I like to do. Just skip around willy-nilly between different courses or dive deep, take advantage of the community aspect, the supplemental notes and things. There are over a dozen wonderful music courses by people much too famous to be on this podcast. And there is always something for everyone in your family. My daughter was watching one by Tan France, Teaches Style for Everyone. So I checked it out, watching the lecture on how to choose your own style, on the difference between fashion and style, on being influenced by someone else's style versus actually copying them, creating a mood board. Because, as a performer, style is something I should probably think more about. And even though my wife picks good things for me and I use Stitch Fix now, so they help me avoid horrible things and help me explore, but really it should be my own responsibility. And that is a mildly life-changing realization that I would not have gotten were I not delving into this deep, deep well that is Masterclass. I highly recommend you check it out. Get unlimited access to every Masterclass, and as a Nakedly Examined Music listener, you get 15% off an annual membership. Go to masterclass.com/examined. That's masterclass.com/examined for 15% off Masterclass. I'm thinking since you're listening to this show, it's safe to say you love listening to podcasts and love listening to music. You can get both of those in large, wonderful quantities on Amazon Music. With 10 million free podcast episodes to listen to, and thousands of music stations and top playlists to stream for free. No matter what you're listening to, you can go hands-free with Alexa. If you're like me and you want your music on demand and ad-free, you have to try Amazon Music Unlimited. You already use Amazon, I know it. And whatever other streaming service you're using right now, or especially if you're not using one at all, go ahead, try Amazon Music Unlimited. You get it free for 3 months. That's unlimited access to over 75 million songs, plus podcasts, plus music videos, etc. You can listen offline. You've got unlimited skips. You can listen anywhere, and Alexa is always there for you to go hands-free with. I have a giant pile of CDs behind me. I have vinyl. I don't listen to any of them. I only listen to streaming music at this point because it's there, it's convenient. If you've never tried Amazon Music Unlimited, now is a great time. For a limited time, new customers can try Amazon Music Unlimited free for 3 months, no credit card required. Just go to amazon.com/NEMPOD. That's amazon.com/NEMPOD to try Amazon Music Unlimited free for 3 months. Amazon.com/NEMPOD. Renews automatically, cancel anytime, terms apply. Well, let's get the second song out there. So this is a remix, but it's a remix of your own song. This is Open, released as a 2020 single featuring Blue. In other words, Jonathan Barnes III, California rapper. But it was a complete song already. I saw that as a B-side to also 2020 Rain Dance single. And on that version, you had your singing throughout, and you have a postlude, a second part of it, a continuation instrumental part of it. Can you say a little about, we're going to play in full the remix featuring Blue. Then we might play some, while we're talking, some of the chunks from the old version to talk about the differences. Can you say a little about sort of the process and why you chose to, I'm going to get a California rapper to go on this one as opposed to, keeping your own vocals, for instance?
I wanted a rapper originally, and it just, schedules weren't lining up, and I just kind of got to a point where I was like, well, I write poetry. I started writing poetry before I wrote music, so I'll just do that and do some spoken word, and that was fine. And then Blue was like, oh, I'm around, so I was like, yeah, that would be great. And I've sort of been faffing with this tune, and let's do another version. The tune Open was actually me sampling myself, or at least my band. So there's a tune on the Rain Dance EP called Open Again. It's like a bass line and some chords. They're just sort of moving in crotchets, or I've forgotten what you call them in North America. Quarter notes?
Sure. Different
terminology. And then the drummer Dougal is just kind of like using that as a vehicle to interact with and just sort of take off as like a launch pad. And there's a bit where we're just sort of messing around with some grooves and stuff. And I had these chords, and then I just sampled them as if I was taking a record off the shelf. Although, yeah, it feels a lot better because I actually had the separate stems and I had the permission from myself to do it. So that felt good. Yeah. And I sort of took a little bit of the chords, made it into this like 6-beat kind of section and played around with the grooves. And there's me doing a little bit of drums on it as well. And then Dougal came over and recorded another layer. So there's should feel like there's 2 drummers in either ear.
One kind of playing straight and the other playing swing. It's a very weird, shambling, but still very funky beat.
Basically, the Rhodes never moves. That's not a part where it's played live. It's just sampled chords. So they're like the anchor, really. And then the drums, like you said, straight and swung, and think like the way that the time feel is being stretched. So it should hopefully make you kind of do this wave sensation, physically. And then I'm playing the bass on it, and I'm doing a bit of both. So I'm playing around with being ahead or behind or on, just depending on what's going on in the song. Just try and bring different feel in different sections.
Open up your mind and think, open up your eyes and see. Everything you believe ain't really how it really be. You feeling me, but are you fulfilling me? The real is me, the ones on the surface can't see. They say he a prophet, but do they really know who unlocked it? The goddess that God is got me, and I be open. To reality or open to imagine things, fantasies, ecstasy, euphoric elopement, utopia. Will you let me open you to show you the powers I possess? For hours I'll confess and open up to you by showing love to you. My mind is open, my time is open. The juice pours out as if the vine is open. Divine is my mode when I'm open. I'm hoping you can get open too. Over juice, not wine. On life alone, we can get high. So high we can fly through the sky. And I am open.
what I was calling the postlude, this open again, you're saying that was the source material. This whole song in both of its forms was an extract from that full band jam. So say the drum explosion at the beginning, it sort of starts out with this very clattery thing, which in your version, you're doing spoken word even over that part right from the beginning. Here, it focuses more on just the instrument, but those drums were added after the fact, or that's part of the original jam?
That was part of, those original sessions, and just sort of link them together to make it feel like it's this loose intro, and then it's like, bang, we drop, and then we'll go straight into the groove. But it's not real.
So there's just bass on this. There's no tuba, even though I guess maybe you added some distortion on the bass or something so that at least when it started, I thought that I was hearing tuba again.
Yeah, I'm just sort of playing it in that way where I'm sort of playing it quite woolly. Yeah, putting it through a little bit of tape and stuff like that just to bring out some of the harmonics. The cool thing I really like about tuba is that it's just got stacked harmonics. It sounds absolutely huge. A bass guitar doesn't have that, but you can kind of fake it a little bit with a bit of tape and stuff to draw some of those harmonics out.
So the way that it ended up with Blue doing the verses and, that it's just the meaning is supplied by your chorus, but because he had a pretty different interpretation of, where to go from there. I guess before I play a little bit of your lyrics, can you tell about the process of communication? He heard your version. Was he paying attention to that? Or did you just sort of send him the version or bring him in like just to listen to the chorus and come up with whatever he wanted to write based on that?
Yeah, just he sort of had the version with the chorus still in there, the words open. It's like, do your thing, man. Interpret it how you want. For me, it was about through stress and through hard times, like just trying to remaining open to love, to experiences. Like, don't just put up your walls. If you're struggling with something, you've got to still remain open and don't let these external forces close you down. And I don't think Blue's interpreting it too far from that, to be honest.
Yeah, well, and I see you got to that by the end of your lyrics. Actually, let me just play, though, the first verse of your original of the just open, not open remix.
To be open. To let someone move through you. To be battered and bruised. To be open for you. To be used as a crutch for you to stand up when my legs can barely hold my own. To be your back and a shoulder. To push my boulder up the hill with you sat on top. To be forgotten.
You're kind of setting it up, be battered and bruised, to be used as a crutch for you to stand up when my legs can hardly hold up my own, to be your back and shoulder, to push a boulder up the hill you sat on top. This is the stuff that you're going to get over by the end of the song. But the way it's put initially was, even though you're saying, yes, be open and all these terrible things are going to happen to you. Like it sounds snarky and ironic the way it's initially put.
I like writing stuff in a way where I step back a little bit from writing too directly or saying I and things like that, just so that people can interpret it the way that they want. So I was thinking about like maybe you're a single parent and you're raising a kid and you're having some really difficult times. Or it could be that, maybe your partner's ill and you're sort of, everything's on your shoulders, all the pressure, or, whatever the situation is where you feel like there's an imbalance, it can really harden you. So for me, it was more like, rather than being like, okay, and then you're open, it's just like, remember to try and be this. Like, this is something that you should try and be working on. It's almost like a sort of, something to aspire to rather than something you're necessarily already doing.
Yeah, so by the end of the song, which is only a minute 40 in, it's not like this is a long journey, but by the third time that you're speaking, then it's to be open, to be patient, for the unconditional, for the reason, let down those walls and be open. Is it no guys, no guard? I couldn't quite hear what you were saying.
No guard, yeah.
No guard, okay. So yeah, by that point, it's exactly what you're expressing. So yeah, then turning to sort of Blue's take on it, he's got some of that in there, but from the first start, it's be open to me. He's like, the man... And then you're responding, even though this was something you had already recorded and you didn't know what you were responding to. Yes, I'm open. It sets up this dialogue, which I don't know. How did you feel about that? Obviously, you liked it enough that you felt this expressed what you were doing enough that, I don't know, did you end up coaching him at all on this, or you really just left it to him?
Yeah, I really just left it to him for him to do his own thing. I see what you're saying. Like, I think it's definitely, we could think about it and analyze it as in, it's like, oh, this is a woman's approach and this is a man's approach. Like the woman's is, this is something that I want to try and do and I'm working hard. And the man's is like, this is what I'm doing and you're going to do this with me. It does definitely feel like that. And I think that's fine. You know, people bring their own characters, their own experiences. And yeah, I absolutely loved everything you brought to it.
Well, I liked having both versions to sort of round out the story. To really understand this, why don't you listen to two versions that are similar enough that they're redundant of each other musically, but yet as far as the remix goes, it was just swapping in his vocal, right? Or was there other things that were tweaked about the sound of it? I didn't notice anything offhand.
There are a couple, subtle things. So like the vocals are mixed slightly differently, and I'm playing around with some like phases and stuff towards the end of phrases just to kind of allow them to melt at the end of the choruses. I think the kick is a little bit more prominent. It's very subtle tweaks. It's not something that you would necessarily notice and if it's just on a first listen.
And then you have, again, kind of that 1980s synth string sort of thing as a wall of sound. Actually, let me play a little bit of that.
And I am
Just the thing that, in addition to the wall of vocals, we're going to add this fake strings. I don't know. Yeah. Can you say a little about sort of your thoughts in how you're arranging this and what that sound and that choice is supposed to be doing there?
Just to lift everything and just make it sound big. Like for me, it's like if you're going to make a chorus or a hook, it's like, let it be that, don't need to shy away from it. So it's like a couple of synth patches. It's like a saw kind of thing. And then like some almost string-like sounds, like you just said. And just to make it sound really thick, and it should sort of fill out the whole production and like a big sound hug. I've kind of done a little bit of side chaining to what's going on in the low end to kind of give it this wave. It's not too static. It's sort of moving with the groove. It's not so loud that it kind of sticks out. I'm guessing that maybe sometimes if you're just sort of putting it on and listening passively, you might not notice it, but it's there in every chorus, and it's just growing and growing, and I'm sort of changing the voicings and pushing them up and just making them a bit bigger every time.
Then we wrap this up with the trumpet solo, which we really haven't talked about your trumpet playing. Let me just play a little bit of it, 2:15. So there's so much rhythmic thickness at that point, very stuttery. How is this affecting, is this an actual trumpet played low, or is this a cornet or something else?
It's trumpet, yeah. And I just let myself just play what I was hearing. I just improvised it, did a couple of different takes of like an improvised pass, and then chose what I thought was the hippest one.
Okay. And again, I'm trying to think about how you were saying that you think of your vocal and your trumpet as one of the same compositional instrument, which I still think that you have different trumpet solos and different things. In fact, we're going to get next to from Yang as the last full song we're going to discuss here, which has, as the song goes on, your co-front horn player on saxophone just goes, into a full-on crazy solo. And you join that a little bit at the end on trumpet, but for the most part, you keep to a very vocal, even if it's a theatrical, like cats crying, an identifiable melody as opposed to Coltraneing it up. I guess that's sort of that Miles was so lyrical with his playing that even when he's, of course he did a lot of fast scattershot stuff, but, sort of better known for something that is vaguely singable. Is that still how you're like in this solo? You're still kind of thinking of something that you could sing it, you could do it on kazoo, you could do it through a MIDI microphone, any number of things would be able to make that sound approximately.
That's the way I like to approach improvised solos. It should feel singable. It should feel just like another melody. It's just that it's a melody that you happen to be writing instantaneously. And then you can bring in the busyness and the sort of Coltrane kind of runs and stuff. I think for effect, I think that's where I like to use them. It's like you're building up intensity. You're using these runs for effect rather than being like, look how fast I can play. Not that Coltrane did that.
He is accused of that. That's by people that don't like him that much. The very end of this song, you've got some nice mixing trickery. The whole thing gets kind of swallowed by reverb. It's a really nice, dreamy effect.
I'm sort of stuttering the delays. I'm sort of playing with the timing of moving it from it being like these like eighth note kind of quaver things that are triggering through the delays. And then what that does, it's like another sort of wave effect, just like with the drums where you've got this straight and the swung thing that should be pulling your body side to side. That's what the delay does. It's almost like a lurch. If you imagine like, on a roller coaster, you've got this that's the feel I was kind of going for. Just like it was like the tapes come unraveled in your tape machine.
So clearly some of what you do is related to like house music, to techno and stuff. But is there any thought, even having rap on this, of this being something that could be used in a dance hall? Or do you know of it actually being played this way? Or is just the fact that it has this stuttery beat and stuff? No, you're playing with those influences, but it's not actually going to serve that function in the way that something you released that says 15-inch mix, that clearly could be playing in a house.
I've seen when I was at Trinity Laban doing my master's, it's like half a music college, half a dance college, and it focuses on like contemporary dance. And I've seen people dance to some crazy stuff. So who knows? I think it's not something that I necessarily intended for like, to be played in a club for people to dance to. But I was kind of thinking more of like, someone on the sofa with the headphones on, sort of nodding their head. But I love that people can experience my music in lots of different places and listen in different ways, interact in different ways. I'd love to see people dancing to that if they could come up with some choreography for it. Maybe that's a challenge.
I just didn't know if there was a particular like marketing thing or a whole different part of the music industry you're dealing with when you're like, okay, now I'm going to get a thing that's going to go out to all these clubs. The project that you've done is it Rain Dance that has the video that's just everybody dancing through the whole thing?
On the track Movement.
Movement. That's the one I'm thinking of. Yes.
I'm never intentionally saying, okay, this is for clubs or this is for that. It's just sort of let the music come out how it comes out. And I think because I listen to lots of different stuff, I'm influenced by different stuff, there's going to be an array of places for that. Movement, and that record has got a lot of that kind of like, 90s rave. That's in me, that spirit is in me. And I thought the footage was so hilarious. So I just had to use it.
So that's actually from one of your shows? The Movement video?
No, it's not. It's some like stock rave footage that someone took in the 90s, absolutely gurning on ecstasy, which I love. I thought it was funny.
Yes. Well, I like that. And then that for Baro Bop that we played at the beginning, I think it was that the video for that is old aerobics video.
Oh yeah, for Walrus. Yeah.
For Walrus.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's the title track to that original thing. Yes, I love that repurposing of that one is obvious that is not actually, taken at your show. But
I've got a couple more actually of like dance sort of footage that I've made. I did make a video for Baro Bop at one point. I just never released it, but maybe I should. I don't know. We'll see. So
this is also you and your tech geekiness putting these videos together yourself and syncing this up as well as doing the mixing.
Yeah.
Okay. That is a good skill to have. You're all around, and you run your own label. We haven't said that yet. What does that actually entail? I mean, this is why I was asking about like having to send it out to different promoters or I just don't even know enough about how, well, you clearly hired a promoter that got in touch with me, but how is this actually like you're playing jazz festivals, but you have clearly like a multi-genre fusion sort of sound? Has that created any problems or just opportunities in terms of like actually as a label person figuring out how to get your music heard?
It can be both for sure. I've had a lot of people say like, oh, you should have different aliases for the different things that you make. And that's something that I definitely don't want to do. I understand
that's too complicated. Don't do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I get it because then it's like, oh, this stuff people know and they can gravitate towards just that because they don't like this stuff or, I get it. But for me, that's what I'm trying to work every day on not doing. I don't want to compartmentalize anymore. I'm trying to just be completely myself and just trusting myself and trusting my instincts. And if that's techno today and free jazz tomorrow, then that's just who I am and what I want to do. But in terms of like, running the label, it's a lot of emails, to be honest. Like there is definitely less time for creative stuff, but it feels worth it because I'm in control. I've got a fantastic team, a small team, but a fantastic team who, sharing the vision and working on, with the things that they're really great at. So promo team I can't do that. I'm not good at that. So like, that's where I can sort of relinquish control and be like, okay, go do what you do. But overall, I'm the sort of person saying, this is what I want to do. These are the places that I want to try and get to. And then some of it is just organic as well. If that's like playing a jazz festival or playing like an indie thing, I'm doing the first iteration of the Pitchfork Festival in London later in the year, which is kind of more of an indie thing. And I think what I do fits there too. And, we'll just see what happens. And I'm sort of up for anything in a way. Like if you want me to go play a folk festival in Japan, I'll go do it and I'll have a great time.
let's get to this third song here. And I think we're going to kind of front load this because the song is over 10 minutes long. So in case people tune out in the middle of it, let's say most of what we're going to say about it before it plays. So this is the first half of Yang, which is only 2020, but I guess this sounds like a different era. This could be a different alias, that it's more of the, I don't want to say traditional jazz, but at least kind of the Bitches Brew jazz, which, you've got some of that right on your new album. You got, Mercury, the opening tune of the new album is complete.
That is a jazz tune for sure.
A thing that I'll say drove my wife out of the room when I was, as opposed to some of this other stuff that's very accessible to somebody that has no liking for jazz at all. But yeah, say a little about, you said you do this entire one as a live to tape.
Straight into vinyl. So yeah, I'd never worked like that before, and the opportunity came up, and yeah, we just jumped on it. It was such a different studio experience to anything that I've had before. I'm usually sort of doing stuff on a shoestring, doing it for cheap, doing stuff in my studio or someone else's, but for just a short amount of time. And there's no time to even rehearse because you just got to do it. Like, just got to get it done quickly. But this was like, we had a couple of days and we sort of played through it. No one had heard the music before. And we actually got, a couple of hours to go through it and let it settle before we started recording, which was great. It's often a luxury. And then, someone ordered some delicious lunch and you sort of feel looked after and cared for, and everything in the studio is like shiny and fantastic and the top quality. And Lyle's like, oh my God, this is the best Rhodes I've ever played. And wow, it's just so nice to play. And everyone hopefully felt looked after and like it was a special experience. It was all live. I mean, usually I would overdub like the percussion myself or things like that. But because this was live, got in some friends to come and do those parts, and we went for it and we treated it like a live gig, really.
So I see this was a 7-piece band. So these were not people. So how do you pronounce the saxophonist's name?
Soweto Kinch.
Okay. Was this a functioning band in any other way, or was this purely, this particular group of 7 was for this session and that's it?
It's basically my band plus a little bit more. So same drummer, Dougal, same tuba player, Ben, same keyboard player, Lyle. And then the 2 percussionists, I will tour with either one of them. So it just depends on who's available, really. And then Soweto was someone that I'd never worked with before, but I've admired him for so long. He's not as known outside of the UK, but in the UK, if you're into jazz, like he's an absolute god. He's fantastic. And, he is an amazing rapper. He's a great producer. He does stuff from like, real trad kind of, 20s swing up to like, making hip hop and freestyling. And he's incredible. And I've been looking for something to work on with him for a while. And this just felt like the perfect thing. The whole EP is about, we can talk about the concept a little bit more in a second, but just to sort of sum it up and be reductive, it's about balance. I thought our sounds balanced each other. Like, I'm quite sort of minimal. I like to play in a way it's like sparing but effective when I do play. That I'm trying to be very conscious to just say a little and say a lot with that little. And he's very busy and frenetic and just kind of has this wild, soaring sound. And I thought together we'd get the effect that I wanted of like, the busy and the simple, and find that balance.
So yes, you were mentioning, so it's not yin yang, it's yang, and each of the titles has these little symbols. Tell me a little about the ideology of the song here.
Yang is basically just like the is the Korean word for yin, basically. It is yin and yang, it's just slightly different. And
a less cliche version of rendition. Yeah.
It's just more the version that I know, and the symbols are Hangul, so that's Korean typography. I grew up with a lot of Taoist philosophy and from my dad, and it tended to be, the sort of the Korean versions of it, like a lot of those messages. I knew the flag from being very, very young and knowing what all the symbology around the flag meant, and all these different ways that balance is part of, just a way of thinking there. And that was with me from being very, very young, and essentially growing up, not realizing that I was sort of being groomed into being a Taoist. Although my dad never said I had to live my life in a certain way. He was just giving me these messages that he thought would help shape my life. And he was absolutely right. I don't think I would be here if I didn't know those messages. I think it's got me through some dark times, knowing that everything balances. Whenever there's darker, I'm looking for the light and trying to find the message. In a difficult situation, I'm always trying to find that balance. So it's not something that I really realized how important it was until I was sort of in my mid-20s. It was just part of me. And then it's like become a very conscious thing that I realized was part of me.
Clearly, as you've been describing, what your lane is that you have a very well balanced. I mean, the fact that you're not just, I'm the creative type and I am attached to my trumpet and you hook me up to a microphone and I will play, I will enter the magic land. Like, yes, you have that, but you're also architecting the whole thing. You're also running the band as a business unit. You're running the label as a business unit. You're making your own videos, clearly navigating multiple social scenes in terms of marketing and other stuff. So that seems a well-balanced approach. You've put out a lot of stuff in the last couple of years. Is the rest of your life actually balanced, or you're like 98% of your energy is going into your career now?
Yeah, I think you've nailed it. I think about 98% of my energy is on my career. I mean, balance is something that I definitely have in some areas and I don't in some others. And it's a process. Yeah, I mean, I've got that side of try and set up the whole logistical side of everything so that when I get on stage, I can be this sort of floaty creative type and just be in the moment because all the other work is done before.
Except when you're reaching down to tweak the reverb in real time and stuff. There's still a lot of...
But I mean, but that kind of stuff for me, that's another instrument. It's another. It's part of the performance. I'm not thinking about it as I'm leaving that mode to join engineering mode. It's it's part of the same thing for me. Like
if you had to do lighting cues, which I do know bands, the performer will be a little too involved with, how everything is supposed to look. I've
not gotten into that. Maybe I shouldn't get into that because otherwise I will end up with another sort of desk on stage and I'll be twiddling with stuff. But yeah, the rest of my life isn't that balanced. I think I definitely work too much. And it's something that I am trying to rectify. For a long time, it was just that, I was just working so hard. And when you're emerging and you're sort of at the beginnings of, it wasn't the beginnings of my career because I've been playing gigs for money since I was about 16. But this new side of me is being okay, I'm an artist and this is what I do. Then, it was the beginnings of everything, trying to establish myself. And you have to take a lot of stuff for free, for cheap. And I was just taking as many opportunities as I could possibly fit in and even some more that I couldn't fit in that I ended up sacrificing for. Particularly here in the UK, fees tend to not be very good for shows and stuff. It tends to be that the better fees are in Europe, and then that comes with whole other sides of stuff where I'm on tour, but I'm also TMing and, all these other things that draw your energy. But it's something that I'm working on, and I think if there's anywhere where there's failures, it's probably in my personal life rather than my musical life. Not failures as such, just stuff that I know that I'm working on. I read a lot about psychology and, I am actively working on myself, trying to always be the best me that I can be and all that, that kind of stuff and other terms that a therapist might use. But that's where the things are that I'm actively working on. I feel like the music stuff is I know what my abilities are and I feel confident in what I can do and I feel excited about what I can't do and I'm learning to do. So the other side of it is definitely I need to try and find more time and energy to put into because I can be sat in my studio at the desk doing a project and realize that I haven't eaten in 48 hours or slept or, just because I've just got so much to do. That's the way I've had to do stuff. And I'm trying really hard now to slow down. And that was something that the pandemic really helped with. All the music was written before and most of it was recorded before. But then during that time, I could do a few more overdubs. Like I had to wait quite a while to do my vocal stuff because I had COVID, and then I had to sort of wait about 8 months before I could even sing again.
Geez, well, I'm glad your lungs seem to be back in order.
They are mostly, apart from the occasional coughing fit when things are damp, and the UK is very often damp. That can sort of bring little recurrences. But yeah, try to slow down, try and take weekends where I could just really trying to put more energy into the other hobbies that I have. So things like football, I'm massively into football. And that's something where it's like, okay, phones off, no more music. I'm just focusing on football. I think it's just the kind of mind that I have where, I can't just watch the football. Like I'm massively into all the tactics and statistics and all that kind of stuff. Like I want to know everything about the game as well. And lots of different sort of more academic side of it as well. So I don't know. It's a gift and a curse, isn't it? It makes me who I am, but also it's a struggle to live with sometimes.
One of the things that excited me, why I couldn't just, let the original version of Open not be included in any way in here, is because when you're doing that, the poetry rap section, then you have the opportunity to let more of your ideas out unfiltered, as opposed to the more mantra-like lyrics of Say Something, of the song that we're going to end with, Spectre. These are very powerful, individual sentences, but there's only so many ideas you can put into that. Whereas if you just are allowed to, as in a rap, or if you write way too many lyrics per verse, as I often do, just to actually have ideas and thinking evident in there, as opposed to just the end product, the spiritual thing that you're repeating over, often literally over and over to yourself in the song.
Again, it's that balance of the extremes of that's, I like both those things. I like having this little riff that's a repetitive thing and it's a mantra. And then you've also got very wordy kind of stuff where it's, it is a poem. There's rhyme, there's meter, there's all these different things that you can pick apart and get into the minutiae of. I like having that. I also there's a bit of me that loves doing the opposite of what you say I do, if that makes sense. So if someone's like, oh, you're a trumpet player, it's fine, I'm going to put out a record where I'm barely playing the trumpet. Or, oh, Emma Jean always has these mantras. It's fine, I'm literally going to release a 12-inch of just poetry. I like that kind of contrariness a little bit as well, as I find a bit of joy in that.
Maybe wait till your 5th or 6th full album before you do a whole album of spoken word against ambient synth or something. If I just interviewed Steve Kilby from The Church, who's puts out, 3 albums a year since 1980. And when you have that kind of output, yes, do a whole album of to satisfy this little thing. But right now, to keep the momentum going forward, which you seem to have a lot of momentum and, a really great original sound, that fact that you can do jazz festivals and indie festivals. And this last thing I wanted to leave folks with, Spectre, was just a song that just jumped out for me from Yellow, because it's got some lush orchestrations in the middle. Clearly, your training, is it actual strings or is it?
It's real strings. Yeah, it's all real instruments across the whole record.
That's what I figured. But also a very mantra-like R&B refrain with a nice chorus, of voices over it at different parts. And there's also a very nice live version of this, which leaves out the shimmery, nice guitars, but is otherwise intact. I like the guitar parts in the middle of this.
Me too. It just got a bit difficult for me because I'm playing I think it's about 5 different guitar parts and I just couldn't choose one. So I was like, well, I won't do any of them then. I'll just make it a different version and, hopefully people will be excited to hear a slightly different version of it.
Well, thanks so much for doing this. Good luck to you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for your time. Thank you for nerding out with me. It's not often you get to talk about stuff in such detail. It's wonderful to do that.
All right, here is Spectre.
There's a specter in my house. He doesn't see me. There's a specter in my house, but he doesn't see me. He doesn't see me. There's a specter in my house. He walks right through me. There's a specter in my house. through me. Walks right through me. Walks right through me. There's a spectre in my house, a thick fog surrounding me. There's a spectre in my house, a black dog is haunting me. There's a spectre in my house. He doesn't see me. There's a spectre in my house, but he doesn't see me.
Thanks so much to Emma Jean. As much as I love talking to the music veterans I normally have on the show, it's also very cool to talk to somebody who is just right in her golden years, though she's really done a lot in the last 5 years and had a lot of experience before that. Still, you get the feeling of this is a work in progress. And I'm very excited to hear what she does next and how she will turn out a decade or two from now. You can hear more, watch videos at EmmaJeanThackray.com. My next interview is with Gerald V. Casale of the legendary Devo, and I was so pleased just yesterday to do a recording with Dar Williams, just one of the best lyricists, beautiful voice, just a classic singer-songwriter. Cannot recommend her stuff enough. You can get all my episodes by going to nakedlyexaminedmusic.com, hopefully subscribing directly to the Nakedly Examined Music feed, and remember you can get all those episodes ad-free by upgrading either through Apple Podcasts, which actually will get you ad-free versions of 3 of my podcasts, so that's a real bargain. Or to support just this one, go to patreon.com/nakedlyexaminedmusic. But whether or not you do those things, thank you all so much for listening to this. Please support these artists. I hope you're all doing well. Until next time, keep on musicking. This is Mark Linsenmeyer signing off.